Last Tuesday my son stood in my kitchen doorway and said he was fine. But his eyes? They told a different story, one I couldn't ignore. What happened next wasn't loud or dramatic. It was 3 quiet minutes that changed the course of our family, and if you've ever read truth in someone's eyes, you'll know exactly what I mean. Before I begin, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I love seeing where everyone is tuning in. Houston, Cleveland, Phoenix, tiny towns I've never heard of. It helps me picture you here at the table with us. It was nearly 9 p.m., the hour when the house softens and the kitchen light turns the walls a mellow honey color. I just turned off the evening news and was rinsing my mug when I heard the front door click, that familiar 2-step sound this old door makes when someone tries not to wake me. Justin knows every quirk of this place. He grew up here, so the way he eased the door shut told me he wasn't just being polite. He was cautious, like a man stepping into a church after all the hymns have been sung. "Hey, Ma," he said, voice easy, face calm. "You up?" "I'm up," I said, drying my hands on a dish towel. "There's leftover chicken on the stove." He waved it off, stepping into the kitchen light. He looked good at first glance. Clean white t-shirt, work jacket, hair a little messy in the way that gets him compliments. But his eyes were rimmed red, not from crying, not exactly. More like he'd been holding his breath for a week. You know that look men get when they're trying to be the dam and the river at the same time. That was my boy. He leaned against the counter the way his father used to, hip first, then shoulder, then the quiet exhale you can only hear if you love someone enough to listen for it. I stopped by. "Figured you might need help with the porch light," he said. "It's been flickering." We both looked at it, steady as a heartbeat. I set down the towel. "You hungry?" I asked again, stalling. "I'm fine," he said, and there it was, the lie that tastes like copper on the tongue. The house hummed, a low-throated sound from the refrigerator, and the clock over the stove ticked like a metronome. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked twice, and then thought better of it. I watched my son watch the floor. His hands were clean, but there was a grease shadow under one nail from the garage, and I had a sudden ache to scrub it away the way I used to, when he was 6 and considered soap an enemy. "Let's sit," I said. He shrugged, but he followed me to the table. I set a glass of water in front of him. Always start with water. It slow walks a person back to themselves, and sat across from him. "Justin," I said, "I'm going to ask you something a little odd." He lifted one eyebrow. He's 20-something going on 40 when he does that. "Odd how?" "I'd want to try something I learned at church after your father passed," I said. 3 minutes of silence. We just sit and look at each other. No talking, no fixing. If it feels strange or too much, we stop. Only if you're okay with it. He smiled the polite smile men use when they want to be brave for us. But then he nodded. 3 minutes, he said softly. Okay. Consent? Such a small, beautiful word. It doesn't only live in romance. It lives in kitchens and clinics and every place where people choose to be gentle with each other. I pulled out my phone, set a timer, and turned it face down. We sat. At first, he tried to hold the everything's fine gaze, the one that's smooth as lake glass. Then a ripple moved across it. He blinked once, slow. His shoulders sank an inch like a man easing a sack of concrete to the ground. I kept my breath steady, the way the grief counselor taught us. Equal counts in and out so you don't start breathing for the other person. In the quiet, I remembered the several times his eyes looked like this. The summer his dog, Ranger, didn't survive the surgery. The day he didn't make varsity, and he came home wearing a grin he borrowed from someone else. The morning he watched his father's casket descend and swallowed so hard I thought he might choke. Each memory flickered behind his eyes like slide film, and I saw the boy and the man overlaid, never perfectly but closely enough to pinch my heart. When the timer finally chimed, he closed his eyes and pressed his palms to them, as if darkness might hold him together. "I lost the job," he said into the heel of his hands, voice grainy. "Last week." The words fell between us heavy and honest. He didn't rush to explain, and I didn't rush to patch. We let the sentence be what it was, no paint on it. When he dropped his hands, there were half-moons on his cheeks from his lashes. "They're closing the branch," he said. "Consolidation. They gave us 2 weeks on paper, but told me I could finish out the month if I wanted. I stuck around for the guys. But..." He stopped and found my face again. "I didn't want to tell you till I had a plan. I wanted to be the man who already fixed it before you even knew it was broken. If you're a father or grandfather watching, maybe you know this feeling, the deep bone urge to carry every burden alone, because that's what you were taught a man does. I looked at my son and saw a good man wrestling with a bad story he didn't write." "What else?" I asked gently. "There's more in those eyes." He gave a little laugh that wasn't quite a laugh. "Rent's due next week. I've got some savings, but if I use it up, the truck's not getting new tires before winter. And..." He hesitated, and his gaze slid toward the window where the porch light shone steady. "I've been waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart running a marathon. I sit on the edge of the bed and stare at the foam like it's going to bite me. I keep thinking I should call someone, but I don't know who because I don't want to be that guy." "What guy?" "The one who needs help." We let that hang there too. Then I asked him for permission again, because I've learned the hardest thing is to let people own their own pain, even when you're their mother. "Can I make a suggestion?" I said. "Only if you want it." He nodded. "Please." "Tonight we're not going to solve everything," I said. "No heroics. But we can build something small and sturdy. 3 things. First, you sleep here in the guest room for a few nights, so your body remembers what a safe roof feels like. Second, we call Mr. Henry in the morning. He still knows half the city's maintenance contractors, and even if he doesn't have a job, he'll have 10 leads. Third, and this is the most important, we get you an appointment with Dr. Patel for those 3 a.m. sprinting hearts. That's not weakness. That's electricity your body doesn't know how to run yet." His mouth twitched at electricity, and I knew I had him. Justin loved taking apart radios as a kid, carrying their guts to the table like a surgeon. He understood currents and circuits. He understood that sometimes you don't need a new heart. You need a different wire. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Only if it's what you want," I said again, leaning forward just enough that he could lean too or not. Mutual respect isn't dramatic. It's quiet and clean. He leaned. We didn't cry, not then. We sat and drank water and ate cold chicken with our fingers because it felt honest to not bother with plates. He told me about the last day at the branch, the way the ceiling lights hummed, as if the building itself were thinking too hard. The way his manager's mouth worked around the word restructuring, like it had too many bones in it. He told me he'd driven past the river and parked by the old bridge, the one where his father taught him to skip stones. "I sat there a long time," he said. "I thought about calling you. But I wanted to be strong, Mom. I wanted you to be proud." I swallowed the lump that rose then. "I am proud," I said, and meant it, "of your honesty tonight, of you walking through this door when you could have driven past." We made a list on an index card. Mr. Henry, Dr. Patel, tires. He added one more and slid the card across the table. "Church?" he wrote, or something like it. That's fourth, I said, tapping the card. And it's a good fourth. We all need a room where the floor holds. He glanced at the clock, then at me. Do you remember Dad's old Chevy? He asked. In the garage? I did. It's been there since the year before we lost him, soft under a tarp like a big sleeping animal. Of course, I said. I kept thinking about it, he said. How it never started that last winter, no matter how we coaxed it. Then in spring, you remember, you put your hand on the hood and said, some engines need to rest before they can remember how to roar. He looked at me, his eyes finally calm. Maybe that's me. Maybe I don't need to be fixed tonight. Maybe I need a hand on the hood and a little time. The relief that rolled through me then was almost a physical thing, like sheets snapping fresh over a bed. He wasn't asking me to carry him. He was asking me to stand with him. I can stand. I've done harder. Let's go see the Chevy, I said. We'll just look at her. No wrenches. Not tonight. We stepped out into the cool dark. The air smelled like rain had thought about visiting and changed its mind. In the garage, the bulb flickered once, then brightened. There she was, blue, stubborn, a memory wrapped in steel. We didn't peel off the tarp. We just stood there shoulder to shoulder, not touching, breathing the same slow air. You know, he said after a minute, I told myself I'd never come back home. I thought it would mean I'd failed. I know, I said. I told myself I wouldn't hover. I thought it would mean I loved you less if I gave you space. He chuckled, and it was a real sound this time, loose and low. Look at us, he said, two geniuses learning to be people. We went back inside, and I made tea the way my mother taught me. Kettle until it sings. Pour high so the steam has room to tell you its secrets. He took his mug with both hands. Can I ask one more odd thing? He said. Ask. That 3-minute thing, he said. Could we do it again tomorrow? Maybe longer? It felt like. He searched for the word and then found it. Like permission. Permission. I thought of the many rooms in a house and all the doors we shut on ourselves. I thought of how a mother's job shifts from lifting to listening, from stride to stillness. We can, I said. We'll make it a ritual, if you like. No talking, no fixing, just seeing. He nodded. I want that. When he stooped to go to the guest room, he hesitated. Ma, he said, and his voice had that kid rasp to it again, the one I hadn't heard in years. Could I? Would it be all right if I hugged you? I just don't want to make you sad. You couldn't, I said, and opened my arms. But only if you want to. He stepped in, and we held each other the way people do when the night is long, but the morning is promised. No weeping into each other's shoulders, no cinematic collapse. Just the steady press of two heartbeats checking their watches and agreeing to show up again tomorrow. When he let go, his eyes were clear. Not happy, not yet, but honest. And that's better than happy. Honest lasts. He disappeared down the hall, and I stood alone in the kitchen for a while, listening to the house recital around our new truth. I rinsed our mugs, set the index card on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a baseball, and turned off the light. The porch bulb held steady. In the quiet, I could still feel the weight of his gaze from those 3 minutes, how it had given me the story his words wouldn't. If you've ever seen a man's eyes show you the thing he can't bring himself to say, you know how holy that moment is. It isn't dramatic. It's a steadying. It's the exact second a ship turns her wheel, and you can't tell by looking at the bow, but the shoreline you were headed toward is no longer the one you'll meet. That was our kitchen last Tuesday. Not a rescue. A rudder. Before I went to bed, I slipped into the doorway of the guest room and watched my son sleep. The moon laid a soft square on the far wall, and his face, finally unguarded, was the same face I used to see after ball games and scraped knees and 1,000 ordinary losses. Open, peaceful, human. I closed the door with that gentle two-step sound and whispered a promise to the night, not the dramatic kind you make to God when you're desperate, but the simple kind you make to yourself when you're ready. Tomorrow, we make the calls. Tomorrow, we sit again. Tomorrow, I keep letting his eyes speak and trust that I will know how to listen. And somewhere, beneath a blue tarp in the garage, an old engine waited politely for spring. The morning after Justin slept in the guest room, I woke before the alarm. It wasn't nerves, not exactly. It was the kind of alertness you feel when life shifts, and you know today will ask something new of you. The air was cool, with that faint smell of dew that slips in through cracked windows. I padded down the hallway and paused outside his door, listening. His breathing was steady, deep, rhythmic. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, my son was resting. I brewed coffee the way he likes it, 2 scoops strong, and set out the blue mug he used to favor as a teenager. I still keep it in the back of the cupboard, even though the handle has a chip. When he finally came into the kitchen, hair mussed, shoulders loose from real sleep, he saw the mug and smiled. "You still have this old thing." "Of course," I said. "Some things you don't throw out." We sat across from each other, steam curling between us. There was no hurry, no pretense. I watched him wrap his hands around the cup like it was a tether, something solid to hold. He cleared his throat, and I could see the words lining up, hesitant but ready. "Mom," he said, "I kept thinking about what you said last night. About electricity, about wires." He looked down into his coffee. "I think I've been carrying current that doesn't belong to me." Expectations, maybe. I thought being strong meant never letting you see me scared. But maybe strength is letting someone in before the whole circuit burns out. Hearing him say that, my heart caught. I didn't interrupt. I let the silence carry his words, the way water carries a leaf without needing to control where it lands. After breakfast, we tackled the list on the fridge. First stop was Mr. Henry. He's older now, cane tapping against the porch boards, but his eyes are still quick as sparrows. He welcomed Justin with that gruff affection only men of a certain age know how to give. They talked shop in the garage, leaning over toolboxes, grease under their nails, and I stood back, watching 2 generations of men speak a language I'd never fully learn, but always respected. When we left, Justin had 3 phone numbers scrawled on a notepad and a firm handshake that left a trace of hope. Next, Dr. Patel. The clinic smelled faintly of disinfectant and lavender. Justin fidgeted with the clipboard while filling out forms, and I touched his arm lightly, just once, to remind him he wasn't alone. When he came back from the exam room, his shoulders were straighter. He thinks it's stress. Wants me to try some breathing work, maybe counseling. Said we'll keep an eye on it. He said it like he was surprised anyone cared enough to follow up. On the drive home, we passed the river. Justin slowed the truck, then pulled over without a word. We sat side by side, watching the water crease in the wind. "I came here the day I found out," he admitted. "I almost called you, but I thought, no, she's been through enough. She deserves better than my mess." I turned to him. "Justin, better than your mess is your truth. I don't need the polished version. I just need you." His eyes brimmed, not with tears exactly, but with that raw shimmer of being fully seen. He nodded, jaw working like he was swallowing back years of silence. That night, after dinner, he asked if we could do the 3 minutes again. We set the timer and sat at the table, no words. This time, though, something shifted. His gaze wasn't burdened or frantic. It was steady, a current flowing evenly between us. At the end, he reached across and took my hand. Not the way a child clings, but the way one adult acknowledges another. Equal, present, grateful. "Mom," he said softly, "thank you. For listening. For not trying to fix me all at once." I squeezed his hand. "Thank you for letting me see you. That's all I ever wanted." The days that followed weren't magically easy. He made calls, chased leads, heard more no's than yes. But each night he came back to the kitchen table, and we sat in silence. Some evenings we laughed about old memories. His father teaching him to drive stick, his first disastrous attempt at grilling burgers. Other nights we said nothing at all, letting our eyes do the work. Each session built a bridge plank by plank, and I could feel him crossing back to himself. A week later, he walked into the house grinning, a folded paper in his hand. "Got one," he said. "Not fancy, not permanent, but it's work. And it's mine." We celebrated with takeout, sitting on the porch under the steady glow of that porch light he once pretended needed fixing. After dinner, he leaned back in his chair, eyes turned toward the stars. "You know what I realized, Mom? That night I lied to you, told you I was fine. I thought hiding my fear made me a man. But what made me a man was admitting it to you and knowing you'd still look at me the same." I reached over and touched his cheek the way I did when he was small. "Not the same," I said. "Better." Later, when he left to head back to his apartment, he hugged me, long, firm, without hesitation. "I love you, Mom," he said into my hair. "And I'm proud of us." As his truck taillights disappeared down the street, I stood on the porch, hand resting on the railing, thinking about the power of eyes. Words can disguise, distract, or delay, but eyes tell the raw script of the soul. That night in my kitchen, when his eyes revealed what his words couldn't hide, was the night everything shifted. It wasn't just about work or money. It was about trust, about being willing to be seen, even when a story isn't tidy. And for the first time in a long while, I felt not only like a mother, but like a partner in his journey, a steady witness, a quiet anchor. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to let someone's eyes speak and promise with our own that we will listen. Because love, at its truest, is not fixing. It's presence. It's 3 minutes of silence that can carry a lifetime forward.